Namaskaram. Welcome to Gandhian Voice. Happy Onam to all of you. August 28th is the birthday of Mahatma Ayyankali. On his birthday, it is worthwhile to scan through the life and mission of Sri Ayyankali. AD 1863. It was a time when caste hierarchy in Hinduism was raging in its worst and shameful form. The people from the underprivileged communities were denied even the basic human rights. In Kerala, Nayars, those Shudras, enjoyed some benefits, mainly because their ladies were preferred for a type of marriage called Sambandham by the younger brothers in Nambudiri families, which was yet another shameful custom in the Brahmin families. This helped many Nayars and their family members to be the cooks and errand workers in Brahmin and Kshatriya households, which came handy for their further development. The condition of Ezhavars, Pulayars, Sambhavars, etc. were very bad, as the upper caste people treated them as untouchables and denied them all human rights. They had to keep prescribed distance from the Brahmins and Kshatriyas, and all of them shall do the community job allotted to them by the so-called upper caste Hindus. Even the Nayars were doing the household jobs of upper caste Hindus. The system of inhuman treatments were such that a Nayar can approach but never touch a Brahmin. The Ezhavar shall keep a distance of 36 paces. The Pulayar shall keep a distance of 96 steps, and the Parayar some more distance. The upper caste Hindus were the sole masters of the poor communities, and the master can even kill those who disobey. At the same time, these helpless people had to work as slaves in the fields, harvest the crops, and hand over the produce to the Brahmin and Kshatriya landlords without adequate compensation. The discrimination in those days was such that all these low caste people had no right to own any property or use the public roads or markets, not to speak of the right to worship or to take drinking water from a common pond. In short, it was a time when Brahmins and other upper caste Hindus were thriving shamelessly on the toils of the lower caste communities. It was in this situation, on August 28, 1863, Ayyankali was born in a village called Vanganur in the princely state of Travancore. In Malayalam era, the birth star of Ayyankali was Avittam, which this year falls on the 1st September 2020. Luckily, Ayyankali was born in a well-to-do Pulayar family in a locality colonized by the Pulayar community. His father and mother were Ayyan and Mala respectively. As Pulayars and other lowly communities were denied education, Ayyankali grew up as a illiterate, but He was a keen observer. As a young boy, he became curious why he and his friends and elders in the colony was not allowed to study in school, play with children of other communities, unable to go to the public roads or shops and markets, or to take water from public ponds. As he grew up, this curiosity also grew up into a challenge. His young mind wanted to question these injustices as soon as possible. He and his friends organized into a dedicated group to take up the inhuman challenges arising from the oppressive upper caste Hindus. Determined to fight for human rights and the bigotry of upper caste Hindus, Ayyankali and his friends secretly mastered martial arts. Ayyankali himself was a well-built man with an iron will to fight any injustice in life. 1893. At the age of 30, Ayyankali had become very strong in body and mind. Secretly, he and his devoted friends became experts in martial arts with a determination to fight against the ill treatments by the caste Hindus. Tired and fed up with the tyranny of the upper caste Hindus, he decided to run his own bullock cart through the public road from Vanganur to Trivandrum, which was a forbidden route for the outcast Hindus. He purchased a good decorated bullock cart, dressed up like a noble with necessary handy weapons, and drove through the street challenging the dogma of caste Hindus. He and his cart driver were able to overcome all challenges throughout the route. With this bullock cart journey, Ayyankali became a model for the outcast people, and it was a history in India against the inhuman gods of Hinduism. Some of the upper caste Hindus who came to challenge his right to travel in public roads tasted their first defeat for their wrong stand. The approach of Sri Ayyankali was to grab the due human rights for his people from the authorities and caste Hindus, if necessary, by force. The bullock cart challenge later came to be known as the Villuvandi Samaram or bullock cart strike. The bullock cart strike was a good beginning. Many SC/ST people, hearing this great news, mustered courage and came forward to support Sri Ayyankali's further struggles for basic human rights. Some learned caste Hindus also supported Ayyankali's struggles for human rights. After 3 years, that is in 1898, came another important event called Chaliyar Prakshobham or Chaliyar Mutiny. Once access to public roads was achieved, the next target of Sri Ayyankali was access to public places like markets and shops where the lower caste people were forbidden. In the year 1898, Ayyankali and his friends entered the famous Balaramapuram market in Travancore state by force. On way to the market in a location called Chaliyar Street, Nayars and caste Hindus blocked the way of Ayyankali and his friends. A fight ensued between the two groups before the might of Ayyankali and his friends. The upper caste Hindus had to agree to the demand of Ayyankali. The struggle by Ayyankali for the right of the lower caste people to enter the public markets came to be known as the famous Chaliar Mutiny. This was followed by several such successful fights at places like Kazhakkottam, Kaniyapuram, Balaramapuram, etc. And all these struggles were against the tyranny of the cruel upper caste landlords of Travancore. 1904. The vision and mission of the illiterate Ayyankali was unparalleled in history. He was all set for achieving basic human rights for the outcast people. The Villuvandi Samaram and the Chaliar Mutiny were only the beginning. One of his main objectives was the right to education for the children of the outcast communities. It was a time when the children of low caste people were forbidden from enrolling in the schools. The then teachers were also not willing to teach the children of the low caste community people. To overcome this challenge, Ayyankali started the first Kudipalli Kudam at Venganur to educate the children of the outcast communities by engaging a fair-minded teacher. Even though the cruel caste Hindus set ablaze the Kudipalli Kudam on the first day itself and beat the teacher, Ayyankali managed to restart the school and run it for a longer time. Seeing all these unholy developments, his mind would have been scheming a program to get admission for the children of his community in government schools by force. In 1907 came another significant contribution from Ayyankali for the untouchable communities. He started the Sadhu Jana Paripalana Sangham, an organization for uplifting the outcast communities, and a news magazine by name Sadhu Jana Paripalini as its official publication. It is worthwhile to note that all these initiatives came from an illiterate Ayyankali. In the same year, at the age of 44, Sri Ayyankali organized the first ever strike of the farm workers in the princely state of Travancore for the right to school admission for their children who happened to be the outcast Hindu communities now coming under the SC/ST population. This was also the first strike in the world by farm workers, and the demand was a most noble cause, the right for schooling of the children of farm workers. The strike went on for 3 years. The planning and management of the strike by Ayyankali was marvelous. He had collected enough food grains in advance to feed the workers' families for 3 years. His famous slogan for the strike, "No admission for our children in your government schools, no work in your farms," as the farmlands remained fallow for years together, looming the threat of a famine, the upper caste Hindus were forced to yield to the demand of Sri Ayyankali, and for the first time in Indian history, the government of Travancore ordered to admit the children of outcast Hindus in schools of Travancore state. A beaming Ayyankali also led the first scheduled caste student by name Panjami to a local government school at Urutambalam in the year 1910, and this happened against stiff resistance from some fanatic caste Hindus. It is quite unfortunate that this great farm workers strike of 1907 to 1910, which is also the first strike by farm workers in the whole world for the noble cause of children's education, goes unrecorded in history. All these noble human rights activities of Ayyankali made him immensely popular in Travancore as a man of great vision and mission. Recognizing his abilities and achievements, the King of Travancore nominated him to the State Legislative Assembly in 1911, and at the age of 48 years. There were several attacks against the reformative works of Sri Ayyankali, and some fanatic caste Hindus attacked and set ablaze the schools where SC/ST students were admitted. The government was not keen to settle such subversive steps by the upper caste Hindus. As Ayyankali was not ready to yield to the arrogance of some fanatic caste Hindus, he decided to fight and defeat such subversive forces. He organized a voluntary force of SC/ST youth called Ayyankali Army. In vernacular, it was called Ayyankali Pada, with training in martial arts, and they gave protection to the schools and the SC/ST students to facilitate their studies. Having settled the issue of education and equipped with the prestigious membership of Legislative Assembly, Ayyankali's attention turned to customs of oppression suffered by the marginalized communities. Then came the year 1915 and the Kallumala Samaram, also known as Perinadu Rebellion. Kallumala Samaram was organized by Ayyankali to salvage the outcast communities from the ugly custom of the Hindu society that the ladies of the SC/ST communities shall wear a dirty garland made of stones so that it will reveal their caste identity before the public. This system was an organized and purposeful dispensation by the upper caste Hindus to keep away the SC/ST people from roads and other public amenities. Sri Ayyankali openly called upon all SC/ST ladies in Travancore Kingdom to throw away the derogatory stone garland and to move around like any other ladies in the society. The caste Hindus in a place called Perinad in Kollam district attacked the SC/ST leaders for throwing away the stone garland. Ayyankali came in person to this place with his followers, the Ayyankali Pada, and defeated the uncultured fanatic Hindus in a direct fight, which is recorded in history as Perinad Rebellion. Throughout his career, his fights and strikes were for gaining human rights for the outcast communities, like access to public roads, public amenities like markets and shops, education for the children, dispensing with the shameful and derogatory customs, etc. Though all his struggles were for basic human rights, all his struggles are seen recorded as riots or rebellion by the historians. Ayyankali was never keen on things like worshipping gods or making temples. He had many interactions with his contemporaries like Sri Narayana Guru and Sri Kumara Guru, also called Poigil Appachan, who were following the spiritual methods of Reformation. But Ayyankali preferred an operation of direct empowerment of the marginalized communities, if necessary, by force. The vision of Ayyankali was amply clear in his personal discussion with Mahatma Gandhi. On 14th January 1937, during his visit to the Maharaja of Travancore, soon after the temple entry proclamation opening the temples for the outcast Hindus, Gandhi also visited Sri Ayyankali at Vanganur, who by then was famous as a well-known social reformer. In the conversation that ensued between the two leaders, Gandhi asked Ayyankali about his desire in life. Sri Ayyankali promptly replied, "I want to see 10 graduates in my community." His desire to educate the children of outcast communities was evident in these words. In spite of the caste-inflicted illiteracy, the wisdom and vision of Sri Ayyankali on human rights and the need for emancipation of the outcast Hindus stands unparalleled in history. The eventful life of Sri Ayyankali came to an end on the 18th June 1941. His contributions in the reformation of Hinduism made him richly deserve the title Mahatma Ayyankali. If he were to live today, his desire would have been to see proportionate representation for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes in judiciary, executive, and the business. On the occasion of celebrating his birthday from August 28th to 1st September 2020, let us salute Mahatma Ayyankali, the doyen of human rights. Thank you all.